how do we go about changing the way that these kind of systems are in place? Because it's pretty locked in the sense that
It's incredibly locked in.
It's a massive sort of operation that's set in a very specific way. And I mean, you learn a lot of valuable things at school, don't get me wrong. Like, I had a fantastic experience at school, but I think it's the way that it funnels in towards when you're leaving.
It's the funnel
that it defines, like, people start, it's a very narrow way to define someone.
Yep.
A, towards getting a mark, and B, towards, like, what do you make of, okay, I got a 95 ATAR, what do you make of that after? How do you make decisions? And obviously a lot of what 18 and Lost demonstrates is that there's so many different stories. Like, everyone has so many different ideas when they're coming out of that environment. And normally what you believe in that moment does not map in any way where you'll be in 10 years.
No, not at all.
I could have never predicted where I would be at 27. Like,
yeah,
there's no way.
That's
There's
the
no
reality.
way
There is no linear career path. The 1,000 doors is the reality. The 1,000 doors is that if you look at where everyone is right now, take everyone over the age of 25, ask them where they are right now, and ask them, did you plan to get here? And is this what you thought it would be? And I would be blown away if you found a single person that said yes to both, because you can't know what it's like. You have not learned through experience yet. So your question is, how do we change it?
Yes.
And it's a big question, because it is a big problem and it's a big system.
It's not a question you can answer. Like,
it's heavily ingrained. It's heavily ingrained. The question within your question might be, what can we do?
Yes.
And what we can do is unlearn. What we can do is unlearn. By that I mean, if you unlearn the natural kind of the conveyor belt we're given to just fit in with everyone, do what's safe, fit in, and sit around all the time trying to figure out who you are and what you want to do with your life, which is also what you're taught to do. Very, very implicitly. You're never explicitly taught that, but you're implicitly taught that you should know what you're doing.
Yeah, and you feel lost sometimes because everything leads.
Well, that's 18 and Lost. That's why it exists, because of that phenomenon. Whereas I don't know any more than the average 18-year-old what I'll be doing 12 months from now.
Yeah.
And in most 18-year-olds' eyes, I'm someone who's quote unquote figured it all out. In their eyes, the difference is I am just very comfortable. I'm not anxious about anything to do with uncertainty. That they are. So, what can we change is very interesting. I think that we engage with that with things like, say, my work with and everything with Constant Student, even some of the work Byron Dempsey's doing, and a lot of other people in the space, where we, you look at that period after people finish high school is probably a decent time to engage them. So stuff like books, stuff like programs where they can actually gain experiences and open up new things, so they can learn to be leaders of their own lives, where you can actually feel comfortable going and doing something that's a bit different to what everyone else is doing. Mm-hmm. To me, you change it through culture. You create which is the opposite. You combat culture with culture the same way you combat a virus with the antivirus. And a culture can ripple from an epicenter. It can start very, very small. And over time, it can ripple out. When someone sees you, this is the very fortunate experience I'm having right now, which is because my work is very visible, and my commentary is very visible. A lot of people do great work. They're not so much about the commentary and coming out about it and talking about it all the time, which is fine. That's not their race. It is for me. And because of that, I get the feedback that so-and-so is now going to do this instead of that, because Maybe they saw what I was doing.
Yeah.
And so if you think about the replication of that across a culture. So in other words, if people on an individual level gravitate towards what makes them come alive, what they're interested in, and it can tend to kind of open doors without knowing every single step to feel comfortable, each person becomes an example to someone else, possibly a whole group of people. And through contributing things like books and podcasts and blogs and stuff into the culture, there's no shortage, of we can't have enough of it. And then what that creates is it creates a new normal. And the normal is, instead of following the conveyor belt to some sort of linear path, the normal is to explore, to have a true journey. And when that becomes the new normal, it catalyzes a whole raft of other people doing it. People are forced to question when they see you doing your creative thing. What is my version of that? What am I doing with my life? Should I be mixing it up? What do I really want to do? And then you create this whole generational. And what will happen when we're having children, Luke, in however long, and when they're going through whatever schooling system, we will have a very different perspective and mindset for our generation than our parents' generation did, who didn't have an alternative way of thinking presented to them. We won't place the same stock on university, for example, as they did. Not to mean that it won't be for some people the best way to build their career or progress for a period of their career, but it won't have the same weight. And so you have that on a generational level. I've never thought that the answer will come from politicians. I've never thought that it will come necessarily from schooling, from within the schooling system. Because what it needs is a without the box solution. It needs people to willing to think from first principles. And normally those people who are willing to abandon the work done so far and the ways of doing things so far need to come from outside the system, because they're not attached. They haven't spent 20 years doing schooling in this way, and they don't want to feel like 20 years of work was all a waste. And it wasn't a waste. No teacher spent 20 years doing their work a waste. It's not my point. But yeah, normally those people are the least worst place to think without the box about what a solution looks like. So it actually comes from all the people operating in the margins, people like you and I, people listening to this. And it can happen, and it can happen, and it will happen, because those things are very fragile. Our work is to accelerate the change by just doing our small part and creating the ripple effect.
So I think you just clarified what I was wondering, was you're not looking to actually change the infrastructure that's in place.
No.
More the way people view their beliefs about learning, and basically making people question why they're going down a certain path, as opposed to just blindly accepting due to maybe like social proof. I'm not sure if that's the right sort of.
Yeah. Social proof. It's the same thing that creates the need to fit in. It just creates it's like positive peer pressure.